Hello YouTube and welcome to the fourth and final video of this anime week. Today I will be reviewing the last anime that I saw in 2014. And you know how they say keep the best for last? Well, I surely did that here because today I am reviewing the saddest anime to have ever wandered the face of this planet. Today I am reviewing Clannad, Clannad After Story and Clannad the movie. I really don't want to do this review. No, actually I do. I've been waiting to do these reviews ever since I started this channel, so let's do this. Now this review will be slightly different than my usual reviews. Usually when there are multiple seasons, I take them together, review them together and give them one score. But with Clannad that's just impossible. The two seasons are just so different, they're so far apart from each other that I have to review them separately. So you're getting a treat today with a 3-in-1 review. One last thing, if it wasn't obvious already, I will say it now literally. This review will contain multiple massive spoilers. But as usual, I will tell you in advance when the spoilers are coming up and I will provide you with links to skip the spoiler parts if you want to. So let's get started with my review of the first season, Clannad. The story of Clannad revolves around Tomoya Okazaki, a last year high school student and pretty much a no-life. He always slacks off at school, gets bad grades and honestly doesn't give a shit about it. But one day he meets a very shy and lonely girl by the name of Nagisa Furukawa. Nagisa is actually a year older than Tomoya, but she has to redo her last year in high school because she missed a lot of school last year. Therefore all her friends already left and she's very lonely. At first Tomoya really doesn't care, but because he has nothing better to do, he decides to help Nagisa to reinitiate the drama club. So let's first discuss the story of Clannad. Clannad is built around arcs, in which every arc centers around one character, mostly being the side characters. Some of these arcs were really well written. My favorite arc was the one of Kotomi. That arc really grabbed me and the end made me choke up. If I look at it now, it was like a little sample of what was still to come. Also the theater scene, which comes more at the end of the season, was one of the better dramatical moments. Something that really surprised me in Clannad was the humor. When I started Clannad, I was expecting this super dark and depressing anime, but I laughed a lot with Clannad. It has more humoristic moments than sad ones. Some of the characters were absolutely hilarious. To me, those characters were Tsunohara and Akio, Nagisa's father. Tsunohara's relationship with his sister Mei and Akio's relationship with his wife Sanae made me laugh out loud multiple times. We already get a good portion of character development in this first season. It's mostly Tomoya who changes, starting from this no life and slowly opening up to others and in general becoming a better person. The music in Clannad was fantastic, such serene and calming music. The entire OST is simply beautiful and so nice to listen to. One song in particular, the overly famous Dango Daikazoku song. Now I must admit, in Clannad I didn't really like the song. I thought that it was a very childish song and that it was really out of place. But that all changed when I got to After Story. Although some of the arcs were really good, other ones were a bit less interesting. To me that was the first arc resolving around Fuko. Maybe it was the magic element that put me off, but in general it wasn't my favorite arc. We have to wait a very long time until we get to the romance. The romance only kicks in at the last part of the anime. That's because the main focus doesn't lay with Tomoya and Nagisa until the last episodes. If Clannad would have been the only season, the romance would have come a lot sooner. My last negative point isn't a legit point because it makes more sense in After Story. I didn't really understand the meaning of the alternate universe story with a girl and a robot. It seemed odd and out of place, but again, it all makes sense when you get to After Story. So as a conclusion, if Clannad would have been the only season, it would have been your average romance comedy with a little bit of drama here and there. That's why I'm going to rate it at 4 out of 5 stars. It was the perfect step up to After Story, but also nothing more than that. Then it's time to get serious. Let's move on to the second season, Clannad After Story. So After Story is the continuation of Clannad, but with the focus a lot more on Tomoya and Nagisa. The first season resolved mostly around the side characters, but now Tomoya and Nagisa take the stage, especially when you get to the second part of the anime. The animation played perfectly into the mood that the writers wanted to set in certain scenes. The playing with light and dark really intensified certain scenes to higher levels. For instance, in the side story resolving around Tomoya's father, everything is always dark colored, filled with shadows to represent the bad relationship between them. But then as things progress in this side story, the colors slowly start to change. On the other hand, we have other scenes which represented more joyful moments and they were really bright colored. Humor takes a less profound role in Afterstory because the story starts to resolve more around drama, but nevertheless there are still some pretty hilarious moments in this anime. Like this one moment where Tomoya and Nagisa have to tell this very important thing, which I'm not going to spoil, to Nagisa's parents. The way that they tell them is just so straight to the point that it's probably the most humoristic moment of the entire anime. The music is still amazing. As I mentioned previously, at first I didn't really like the Dango song, but in Afterstory it gets such a deep meaning. Every time I listen to it I tear up. It hits you right in the heart and it will resonate in your head forever. My favorite version of the Dango song was Chisana Tenohira, or The Palm of a Tiny Hand, which is played at the very end of the anime. It is such a meaningful song to me because it reminds me of something that happened 5.5 years ago. Just something that left a permanent scar on my heart, and this song really reminds me of the people I lost then. So that was a private thing that I wanted to share there. And now we get to the spoilers. It will be a lot of them and they will be extremely important. So definitely click the link if you haven't seen Afterstory yet. We get a lot more character development in Afterstory than in Clannad. Starting off with Tomoya. He already developed in Clannad and he goes further in Afterstory. He goes from a boy to a real man and we get to see the entire process that he goes through. And then there is of course the moment when Tomoya becomes a father. And that marks the beginning of a whole new era in his life. And he becomes this really great father. Well, that's after he has recovered from all the turmoil that he has gone through after Nagisa's death. But when he finally reunites with Ushio, his daughter, he becomes this really warm person who would do everything for his daughter. Tomoya really represents the father that I want to be one day. And then we have Nagisa. She probably goes to the most development in Afterstory, starting out as this incredible shy and helpless girl and becoming this independent and strong woman who then gets pregnant and most likely would have been a terrific mother. Do I really have to explain how good the drama is in this anime? Oh my god, this anime just plays with your feelings like a cat with a ball of twine. There are episodes where you go from super happy to super sad in just a matter of minutes. Let me promise you one thing, you will cry with Clannad Afterstory. There's this saying that if you don't cry with Afterstory then you don't have a soul. Well, I couldn't agree more. I am a very reserved guy and I never cried with fiction before, not even as a child. Now I was spoiled before I started Afterstory. Yes, I knew that Nagisa and Ushio would die and I even knew in which episodes they would die. So I thought that I would be able to handle it. But God, was I wrong. Nagisa's death is still the most heartbreaking, emotional and devastating scene that I have ever seen. It's also emotional. The moment when Nagisa has just given birth to Ushio, the way Tomoya speaks to her, the animation, the coloring, the freaking Dango song. I couldn't help myself and tears were rolling down my cheeks. That was the very first time ever in my life that I cried with fiction. And I didn't have to wait long for the second time, because that was the sunflower field scene where Tomoya finally reconnects with Ushio. Followed that up with the train scene and there were the tears again. Strangely enough, I didn't cry at Ushio's death. I don't know why, but it just didn't hit me so hard as Nagisa's death. Now although Afterstory was insanely good, I do have two small remarks. First remark is that the two arcs at the beginning of Afterstory weren't interesting. The story about the gangs adds nothing to the main story, and the first story reused the element of a deceased person whose spirit is still present, so those two could have been worked out better. The second remark is the most heard problem with Afterstory, and that is that the ending indeed feels a little bit forced. But honestly, I didn't want another ending than this. I probably wouldn't have survived that. So as a conclusion, Clannad Afterstory is the best anime that I have ever seen. It stands head and shoulders above all the rest. This anime made me feel emotions that I didn't know I still even had them. It made a deep impression on me and it's literally a life changer. So of course, a big, fat, gigantic 5 out of 5 star ranking. But you can say a 5+ star ranking. If you haven't seen Clannad and Clannad Afterstory yet, please go watch them, it will be an amazing journey. One word of advice though, don't watch the last third of the anime if you have to go to school or work the next day, because you won't be able to function properly, or at least I wasn't. And then as a bonus, my thoughts on Clannad the movie. Now overall, this movie was a disgrace to the series. I hated the way that Nagisa was animated here, and her shy personality, which is a really important element in the story, is gone. Yesterday I said that Anohana the movie succeeded in making you feel the same emotions again. Clannad the movie didn't, at all. I didn't feel any of the strong emotions that I felt in this series. One positive point in this movie was the ending. It provides us with an alternative to the forced ending of Afterstory, and it would have been interesting that this ending would have been the series ending. But overall, this movie really sucked. And I'm going to rate it at 2.5 out of 5 stars. I don't recommend watching it, just enjoy the series. And with that, we have come to the end of this 3-way review. My longest review until now, and my last review of a 2014 anime. So stay tuned tomorrow for a very special video. And with that, I conclude my review of Clannad. As usual, you can find a full list of all my animes and reviews over at Anime Planet. As usual, I will put a link in the description box down below. Now if you want me to review a particular anime from this list, please put them in the comments. Also, if you have a recommendation for me, put them in the comments as well. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, visit me on Facebook and subscribe to this channel for more reviews in the future. I will say arigatou gozaimasu and I will see you all in tomorrow's video.